part of this is acknowledging that we are living in a time of extraordinary inequality, but most of the income and wealth growth and gains have gone to the top 1/10 of 1%. Those are households with incomes over 2 to 3 million, with wealth over 20 million. And we call it the excessive wealth disorder, which is above a certain threshold. It's not just about wealth, it's about power. And how do we intervene? Thomas Piketty said, you know, if we don't intervene in these unequal trends, we are going to become a hereditary aristocracy of wealth and power. So, what is our plutocracy prevention program? It's going to have elements that address, as we've talked about today, not just income, but wealth and assets. And one of the reasons is the top 1/10 of 1%, just going to that, half of their income comes from capital, comes from investment, capital gains, investment. Only a fourth of the income of the top 1/10 of 1% comes from wage and salary. So that's something to be thinking about as we design our plutocracy prevention program. So what are the components of it? One is one bold idea. You've talked about it, but let's lift it up. Senator Elizabeth Warren has put forward an annual wealth tax. We do not have an annual net worth tax on the wealthy. She's starting at $50 million at a 2% rate, going to a 3% rate on wealth, annual wealth over $1 billion. That would be a significant intervention in plutocracy prevention. It would raise almost $3 trillion over 10 years. Then we've talked about the estate tax today. And there is a discussion about whether we should, how do we fix and strengthen the estate tax, or do we shift to an inheritance tax? That's part of what we need to talk about. But Senator Sanders has put forward a proposal to boost the estate tax, to add a graduated rate structure, and very important, close a number of the escape hatches and loopholes that have made the estate tax weaker. So there are a number of fixes to the estate tax. And Thea's going to talk more about sort of the income tax side.
Great. Thank you so much, Chuck, and it's great to be here. So we've talked plenty today about raising the top marginal tax rate to 70% on incomes over 10 million. There's also a proposal out there, an excessive wealth surcharge, a 10% surcharge on incomes of the people over 0.1%, which is somewhere between $2 million and $3 million a year. And that would apply to all income, both capital and wage income, and would raise about $750 billion over 10 years. So these are all multi-pronged approaches to this one problem. And I think one of the things that we've heard from others, from Steve Wamhoff today too, is that we need to close off all the different escape valves. We need to address many different things because the evasion is so obvious and so easy. And one last point I would just make in terms of the rationale for it and the incentive for it is that somebody made the point earlier today, I think in Congressman Pocan, in the earlier session, that when you have a high marginal tax rate on income, it creates a disincentive for corporations to overpay their CEOs or their finance people, or universities to overpay their presidents, because there's no point giving people an income in the zillions of dollars if that's all going to be taxed away with a 70% or a high marginal tax rate. And so you can have actually a pre-tax impact by having these high marginal tax rates. That can change both the incentives as well as the distribution. And Chuck and I just want to invite all of you. We're going to have another conference on June 25th here in Washington, D.C. on taxing the very rich, the top 0.1%. And we're happy to build on this wonderful effort by the patriotic millionaires and the great information and points that have been made today.
Great. Plutocracy prevention.